Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. In the Temple of Horus we are, in Edfu, a spectacular temple which has survived the thousands of years because it is built well, dear ones. I want you to imagine for a moment how this was accomplished and ask you, do you think there was someone in charge? Do you think the workmen simply descended on this and shaped it? And perhaps they had a plan, but there had to be an architect. There had to be someone there pointing and saying, this goes first, this goes second, and supervising it step by step over the years it took to create such a thing. In addition, there's an elegance of building here. It is not simply a cookie cutter, as they say, temple. The floors slope a certain way on purpose, the certain angles, the perceptions, the doorways that shrink and open. All of these things, dear ones, took a great deal of planning, mathematics, and supervision. I've told you before that it's hard to find the plans or even the tools. The plans, dear ones, are sacred. They were given by God, and they were instructed carefully and followed out, temple after temple, for the same kind of building, the same kind of consciousness of building. It's not unusual that you didn't find the plans or perhaps even the tools, any more than you would find the tools if you had one of your skyscrapers suddenly buried and unburied thousands of years later. You would not find the tools there or even the plans. They're in a separate place, perhaps a separate office, a separate building. Here, that has not yet been discovered. You know the names of the architects, and even their tombs have not been discovered. So there is a sameness of something that is missing. But you can see the results, dear ones, right in front of you. The majesty of planning and order. The Egyptians were good at this. There was order here. There was similarity here. There was good management and control here in building here. And what you see has lasted 1,000 years, another 1,000, perhaps another 1,000 on top of that. That is the result of mastery, of architecture, of planning, of mathematics. We continue the story of woe. Now has come back to his teacher, his master, for more information about something he never knew existed. Because his teacher, his master, is doing a show and tell, perhaps the first time he has ever heard these things, or been shown these things, or been told these things, about tools the human being has in a higher vibration. Filled with metaphors it is, and it continues. And the teacher says to Woe, Woe, are you ready for more information? And Woe said, yes. So the teacher said, I want you to imagine a factory in progress. This is a metaphor. Woe, it's a factory that makes a product. And every single worker in the factory and all the departments, all that which goes into making a product is known. Let's call the product L. And everyone in the factory knows their job, not just the workers who make L, But the accounting office and the sales office and the human resources office and all those things that go into making a corporation, they know. And they accomplish their jobs because they know what they're doing. But there's something missing in the factory. There's not much direction. Now, if you looked at the factory, you could say, well, it seems to be working well, and the products are rolling off the assembly line. Here comes another L. Here comes another L. Here comes another L. But over time, dear ones, the factory, without someone in charge and someone saying, correct this and go here and do that, it bogs down. There's dysfunction. There are problems even between the departments because they don't talk to each other. It's not easy anymore. You might even say there is dis-ease in the factory. Well, I've just described the human body. Every single part knows what it's supposed to do and does it. And the product is L, life. We told you before, what happens to cellular structure when there's no direction? It ages more. It doesn't have any consciousness of knowing because there's no one in charge. There's no boss. But there is a boss. What is it you have been told in your culture, or those listening to this, all the woes, the woe-mans who are listening to this, what have you been told in your culture? And it goes like this. The body does its thing. And you look down at the body and you hope it works. And if it doesn't, then there's chemistry that'll help it. There's all manner of chemistry today. You call them drugs. They will manipulate the chemistry in the body to make it last longer or perhaps to cure a disease. That's what you've been told. And that's what the culture then does. Almost exclusively, that's what the culture does. But I'm going to give you some information that you can throw all that away. If there were a boss, there would be no more dis-ease. And so this is where we get the expression, and we have told many times, many those who listen, many woes who sit in front of me. Be the boss of yourselves and have a consciousness of energy that helps them to know what to do. Now, you don't know what a cell does. Not really. You'd have to study and study and study to even understand the chemistry. That's the cell's job, dear one. They do it well. But they need an architect. They need someone in charge. And this may sound odd. You sit in a temple that was built for what? Meditation. Thousands of years ago, the architects built that for sound, meditation. You might even say, to establish the glory of the Creator. Today you sit here, what we are doing, thousands of years later, meditation. Some things don't change. Your body needs meditation, not necessarily like this. Call it biological meditation, and be the architect when you say to the body, dear cells of my body, listen up. I love you. Work together like a beautiful love machine with compassion for one another. And I will be there as the architect with my consciousness, with my own body, with you, to direct you into life. You'll find that you'll have a human that does not contact the diseases of the day, will not have necessarily creaky bones of the day, will not age as much, we said before, but more than that. More than curing disease, more than healing. It's a body that will not then deteriorate as much or catch the things of the day. It's about health, not about healing things which are wrong. It's about preventing them in the first place. A body that does nothing except love you back in the way it works, and you love it. An odd concept, perhaps, to medicine, that you would love your body so much that you would meditate in the temple of your cells and be the architect of your own life, and how they work together in the beauty that they were designed to, with you in charge of all of them. Once again, Woe never heard that. He always simply took his pills. This is the truth of the day for all of you who wish to go to the next level of what you're here for. Old soul, you're designed to live a long time. Old soul, we need you to. This earth needs you right now. It needs your compassion, your prayers, the energy of your consciousness, the architect of your own humanity. I'm in Kryon in love with all of you. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those who are listening later, we're on the top deck of a Nile boat, with boats passing by, music playing, the sun going down, the chill of the air is starting, and we are in Egypt. We are docked close to the town of Luxor, and we have a group in front of us who are light workers. There is something my partner has described as consensus reality. And today we're going to talk about that just a little bit in reference to Woe, who today is about to hear something that may chase him away from everything that he has been told. It's profound yet controversial, unbelievable. It's about God. And you ask yourself, who, what, how? All of the things about God. Because your mind, dear ones, has had a picture of that which is God all of your life, from those you trust, from your culture. In this culture, you can hear it. You hear the result of prayer and worship, and strong belief and dedication. Where you come from, you have the same thing. You may go to a place for it or not. But I guarantee that as you grew up, you heard about it. Do you remember the first time your parents may have said the word God? Or perhaps they did not, and they simply took you to a place where you learned in another way. But consensus reality, especially to a child, is that which is happening which the adults do. And so often all of you, as children, are imprinted with this consensus reality, and it becomes your belief system. One of the most interesting things, if you want to take a look at the statistics, is that most of the planet believes in this one God. And they have so many different ways of showing their belief or sorting it out, or organizing it, or putting rules around it. And so often, it's centered around a prophet, who then is a teacher about God. But consensus reality doesn't let you really see what God is, because you're limited to what you were told, or who you have to go through to get to God, or the rules around it. And that obfuscates the splendor, the glory, the beauty, the compassion, the kindness that is central and pure and thick around that which is God. Woe again went to see the man that he had been going to, and he realized this man was a teacher, perhaps a guide, perhaps. And the man represented a group of high conscious thinkers that Woe was attracted to originally, because he was wallowing through the sand and he saw that they were not. That's a metaphor, dear ones, for low consciousness and high consciousness. And he was excited because of what he'd been told about what he could do in so many ways, who he was. Indeed, he was discovering himself. But that's still elusive, because Woe didn't really understand why these things would increase what he was discovering about self. He felt he knew himself well. These were just tools and things he was finding out about his body and consciousness and reality. But he was about ready to know more. When he saw his friend and his teacher, the teacher was grinning at him, as though the teacher knew something that Woe did not. Indeed, he did. This was going to be the pivotal point of whether Woe would ever come back, because Woe was about to learn about God, not the consensus reality, but the truth. The man looked at Woe and said, "Welcome back, Woe. Are you ready for the lesson of lessons? The one that will start so many more ideas and lessons. One that you might have to think about a long time before you come back. One that you might have to sit with and find if it's real or not before you come back." And Woe realized there was something profound coming. And the man looked at Woe and says, "Woe, you are not who you think you are. You are a shadow of who you are. You have no idea what self is. Woe, tell me, who is God?" And Woe attempted to tell this teacher what he had been told. And he said, "Well, God is some kind of overseer. God is the one we pray to, and God is that which grants us the things we need." And the man looked at him and said, "That's not correct. God is none of those things. Sit, Woe, and listen, my friend, to something you didn't expect." And the man started in with a full explanation of the creative source of all things. In a way to say, how big is God? It was impossible. God is not an entity. It's not a who. It's not a what. God is. God is the source of every piece and particle of all things everywhere. God is in every single atom that makes you. God is light in a dark place. God is light in a light place. God is love. And Woe listened and realized that it was much bigger than he had been told. And in Woe's mind at that point in time, he thought, wow, I wonder if I can ever get to that place where I could communicate with that God. And the man knew what Woe was thinking. And he said, Woe, do you love God? And Woe answered immediately and said, yes, this is my teaching, that I would love God. And the man said, do you really love God? And Woe stopped for a moment, as though perhaps his answer was not good enough, and he pondered for a moment. And he said, yes. And the man continued and said, God is the Holy of Holies, to use the Egyptian term. God is more than you think, because God is personal. This creator of the universe, Woe, he knows your name. And that startled Woe. He knows my name? Of course. And then the man looked at Woe and said, I'm going to tell you something that you have to ponder. There was no beginning of God, Woe. Everything on your planet is linear and God is not. Everything you have has a beginning and an end. Everything you have ages, and there's a cycle. And none of that is God. God was here before here could be defined. There is no end of God. And this is what you should know, Woe, because of what I'm about to tell you. If I said in the beginning, I would be wrong. There is no beginning with God. It simply existed as the creative source of all things, and it knows your name. And here's the reason. Because all of the souls in this entire galaxy, in the entire universe, are part of that creative source. There was no beginning and no end to any soul. It was not created. It simply was. The structure of the soul, the way you see it, who you are, that has structure. And that was created. The system that you sit in, that is your soul, was created. But the essence of your soul is God. Whoa. If you love God, you must love yourself. That startled Woe, because loving yourself is an egotistical thing. It's not something you're supposed to do, and that's what his religious leader told him. Woe, watch yourself so that you don't be conceited or full of yourself. And here is this wise man saying, love yourself as much as you love God. And Woe said, I want more explanation. And the man said, yes, you do. Woe, loving yourself is not something that you would consider an emotion or an ego trip, as they say. It's loving the essence of the image of God in you. Loving it so much that you start to emulate it as best you can. Because your soul never had a beginning or an end. And you sit in your soul. And I'm going to tell you more about the system of your soul, Woe, if you come back. And Woe said, dear man, whose name I never even ask, do you mean I am God? And the man looked at him and said, in a sense, you are a piece of the Creator walking on the earth in human form, with free choice to find this truth or not. And if you choose to find it, there is so much more to tell you. Loving yourself is the first step to accomplishing everything else I have given you that you can do. Go from this place, woe, and ponder this truth. And woe looked at the man and said, this is profound. I must think. I must think. It goes against everything I was taught. Sir, what is your name? Woe asked. I've never asked that. And he looked at Woe and said, you can call me today Yusha. Woe was confused. A name is a name. Why would I call him that today? And the man got up and left. Yusha. Woe left more confused than he had arrived. He had a lot to think about. He was about to step into something that was grand, but in the process, he might lose friends and family if he told them what he knew. Where are you in all of this, dear ones, today? Are you on the brink of knowing that God is bigger than you were ever told? I hope so. Because everything you think, as grand as it is, will only be a portion of the truth. You might hear the prayer towers around me as they worship, as they call to prayer in this land. God is so big, dear ones, so big. The invitation is out to ponder this for yourself. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I'm going to make a statement now that I have given many times. And some of you will find it funny. But if you think about it, it's probably one of the most profound statements I could make about your relationship with the Creator. Here is the statement. If you were all dogs, then God would be a dog. And all the angels would go around smelling each other. Consensus reality is this: that because you are a human and you think like a human, and all of the emotions that you have are human, therefore the Creator must also be human, or think like a human. And it doesn't. Love doesn't think. Love is. Compassion and kindness. You might think they have attitude. They don't. They have sacredness. Woe was about to learn something he didn't expect. The most controversial thing that has been taught, second to the one he heard yesterday. You can tell that the lessons are getting stronger and deeper and harder to assimilate. Woe is like so many other light workers, except these things in this parable, in this series, are being given almost daily. But I will tell you that to a regular light worker who starts at the bottom like Woe did, without any knowledge at all, with discovery of self, this often takes years. It takes years because it is so different from the consensus reality that a human being learns. Woe again went to that place where he knew those were there who seemed to be walking with the sand receding from them, and he was starting to understand the differences between the consciousness of those and the consciousness of his family, of his friends, of his whole life, of his reality. Woe is reframing everything he has learned. And the last lesson was the most difficult, when he learned that his soul was sacred and had no beginning and no end, because his soul was part of the creative source. And that meant that he was part of the creative source. And he was asked to love himself as he loves God. That's unconditional. That's not ego. Compassion with self is part of the learning and the discovery of self. But today, he would be faced with an idea, with a truth, where he would have to rewrite everything he had ever been told about the rules of God. There he was, the teacher, Yusha. And Woe said hello, and Yusha said hello, and now they were doing more. They were hugging. So good to see you, Woe. Thank you for coming back, Woe. Are you ready for the next lesson? And Woe, of course, said, yes, that is why I come back, and that's why I'm here. Yusha was silent for a moment, and he said, this lesson, Woe, will create doubt in you if I'm right or wrong. Because you see, you are a product of everything you've been taught, Woe, and how you think about God has come from your parents, your religious teachers, your friends, those you trust, those you love. I'm about to tell you something that is different from anything you've ever been taught by those who you respect and love. And you're going to have to understand that they did their best, and they taught you what they knew. So it's not a violation if you decide not to believe what they told you. It's not a betrayal of them or their truth if you decide that there's a grander truth that they never knew, but they did their best. And here is what I want to tell you. God does not think like a human. God does not have consciousness as you think of it. There are no rules that are human-like with God. The creative source of all that is does not have a consciousness that reflects that which is on this planet. And what is on this planet is a human being with free choice that has been given the choice between light and dark so that the human being can choose. That does not reflect with God. Listen, Woe, to this. There is no punishment. There is no weighing of good deeds when it comes to the creative source. God is love. God is not rules. The idea of punishment, good, bad, sin, torture, devil, all of those things in the afterlife come from humanity, not from God. And here's where you have to use spiritual logic, something that is never used. Every spiritual system on your planet, every single one, has a system in place when you die. And that system either has you come back to relearn things until you get it right, or worse, a system where you go and you're judged. And if you do not come up to that which is the judgment, you go to a horrible place where you are tortured every single day and burned alive on a regular basis. And that is what your scripture tells you. Does it make sense? The Adam and Eve story, where the humans are put on the planet and they're fresh and new and they're given rules. And right away they test it and violate the rule. And so you're given free choice and immediately judged on it. Does that make sense? What is free choice if you are immediately judged on it? Your children are fresh and they're new and they test you, don't they? Do they always obey you? No. Because they're fresh and they are testing the envelope, if you wish, of their parents' rules. It's common. Would you then take a child who has done something you told them not to and say, that's it, we're banishing you from the house, and if you're not good, we'll catch you and burn you alive? How is that for love? And if you wouldn't do that to your children, do you think God would do that to you? Whoa, God is love, not torture. I'll give you something else to think about, whoa. If you ask a priest, a pastor, or any of those in your land who you respect, how is it that God will take those and say, if you've heard of certain prophet, then you will be saved and you will go to that good place, but if you haven't heard of them, then you will go to the horrible place where you'll be tortured? And that means that millions who never got a chance to hear about the prophet will then be tortured. Even children, according to your scripture, will be then tortured and after death. Does that even make sense? And if you ask them, here's what they'll tell you. That's scripture, and we believe it, and God works in mysterious ways. Let me tell you something, whoa. God does not work in mysterious ways. God works with love and compassion and kindness. And if you choose evil on this planet, and there's plenty of it, it's generated by humans, not some entity with horns. And a human and groups of humans can generate evil and darkness. That's the free choice. And no matter how dark they are, when they go to the place after their life, they go to a majestic soul that's just like yours. If you've ever seen some of the old scriptures, there's the story of the prodigal son. You should study it, for that is the truth, and that was given to them to put in scripture. One brother does everything wrong, one does everything right. And at the end, they come home to their father, the metaphor of going to the other side of the veil. And they both get the same party. That's how it works. That's love. That's God. So rewrite the ideas that there are rules of behavior, or rules that have to be followed, that require you to climb steps and count beads or any of the other things to gain the favor of God. You are a piece of God, and you learned that yesterday, and that means you are a piece of love. And Woe was so confused, and he says, well, there has to be some kind of idea how to behave. And Yeshua said, I've now told you twice. Listen to it again. Here are your instructions. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, awake and asleep. And if you do that, these things will be added unto you, and you will have better intuition, and love will be your partner, because God is your partner. God is not in the sky, and you are here. God is with you every moment. Remember, Woe, God knows your name. If you awaken to these things, the decisions you will make will be more compassionate and kind and loving. That's because there's more and more light shining on this planet, Woe, and you're beginning to see it, and now you know why. Woe left that place with questions. How could that be? How could it be that if somebody does something wrong, there's no punishment? And he remembered something else that Yeshua said, that there's punishment itself when you choose the darkness. This punishment is of the reality that is dark, where you don't control your life and you catch diseases and you attract other evil things. And that's the punishment. It happens while you're here, not later. Yusha told him there's much more. He doesn't know much about it, but he doesn't know how much he can absorb. But Woe goes away for a time and thinks about it all. And this is where Woe does something on his own, without Yusha telling him. He starts to meditate and pray on his own and ask the questions. Dear God, if these things are true, give me the intuition of a nod, of yes, a no. Give me the chills of understanding, or the love wash to say yes or no. Woe is starting to have God as his partner, to ask for the things he needs for belief, and he starts to get them. There's nothing like it, dear ones, where you start in your own silence and meditation to say, Dear Spirit, dear Creator, show me what I should know, and guide me by the light. It's a good story, and it even gets better. Woe will be back. And so it is.
Of creation.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. It's early in the morning, and yet again, for the third time in my partner's lifetime, we find ourselves at the door of Sekhmet. It's not an accident that what everything means here today in history applies to this particular message. We continue the discovery of self and the parable of woe. Listen, dear ones, for there are metaphors here for you. The one called Yusha has been waiting for woe. We continue the story in this episode of Woe's discovery of his self, and indeed, this time, he shows up. He did not in the last episode because he was still pondering what he was told. It was so different from anything he had been told before. About the majesty of God, of the power that he had, even as a human being, a piece of God. He had rewritten, perhaps, everything that he had been told, reframed, but he still wasn't done. He had questions, big questions. Yusha was there waiting for him, and Woe came and said, "Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry. I was not here before, and he said, these are confusing times for me. I don't understand fully." And Yusha said, "Woe, this may take a long time. It may have to be intuitive for you eventually. You may have to sit with it, use it, meditate about it." And Woe said, "I'm not done. Don't give me anything new. I need to have answers." And Yusha smiled because everything out of Yusha's mouth would be new. The concepts, the answers would set Woe back yet again. And Woe's question this time was this: I see so much on this planet that doesn't make sense to me in light of what you told me. This beautiful, loving, powerful God that you talk about that doesn't feature punishment or reward, but just love and gives us free choice completely. And yet there's so much evil here. We've been told and shown over and over that there are ones who are evil, who are trying to capture our soul, and we have pictures of them. And every single culture has them, and every single religion has them. And it's so awful to think that there would be those so horrible, so evil, so destructive on this planet. What do we do about that? And Yusha smiled yet again and said, "Woe, here comes something else that will set you back. There are no evil ones on this planet apart from humans. There's no demons out to catch your soul apart from humans." And here's a statement, woe, that I'm going to make for you and for all those listening. The most magnificent, loving, amazing, miraculous things on this planet come from humans. The most evil, destructive, awful, horror on this planet come from humans. You don't need demons on this planet. Humans will take care of it all. You have the power, woe, within yourself of free choice, of a consciousness that has energy to create or destroy. To create or destroy. And that is the truth. And because it is so elusive to you, you make up things. All good things come from angels, all bad things come from demons. Humans have no responsibility, you see. You simply go between them and hope for the best. That's what you were taught. Good luck, you were taught. And now I'm telling you there is power in consciousness. You can be as high as the angels, as low as the demons, if you choose. And woe, you know I'm right, because if you look at history, you see what humanity has done with humanity. It didn't take a devil to do that. But woe, I want to tell you this. You're sitting here because you've had an awakening to ask. And all those listening right now have the ability to listen. As I tell you this, this planet goes through cycles. And the one that is going through right now is more than a cycle. It is a full awakening. It was projected by the indigenous. I told you about it 32 years ago, and here it is. This is the great shift, and the shift is of consciousness. For the first time on this planet, you have the ability for light to outweigh darkness. And in the past, all of your history, all of your past, darkness truly has reigned. It has been unbalanced in the scales of light and dark. Dark has always outweighed light until now. You're starting to see it on the planet. Again, I say that in so many different ways. The planet is starting to awaken to a larger truth, that it can control itself without war, that it can build itself up even with increased populations and feed itself so that no one goes hungry or cold. These things are coming. The planet feels it. The planet is reacting to it. And old souls are helping to steer that by their meditations in the field, by their love, by their kindness, by their awakening. This is the truth. If you take a look at the power of creation and destruction, you're moving into the age of creation. This group is about ready to move into a small area, a powerful area, an area that preceded the rest of Karnak, an area that they steered away from when they built Karnak, because this is a power spot, a real one. This is not a consensus reality. This is not mythology. This is a place of creation. Today, I want you to think of that, all of those of you in this group. Woe took all of this in. Somehow he expected it. This was the answer that Woe had expected, because Woe is starting to awaken to a larger truth. As he ponders it with the logic of it, as he thinks about a beautiful, loving, creative God, giving humanity a piece of God, free choice, it's starting to work. Woe thanks Yusha again and says, I will ponder some more. Do you have more things to tell me about myself? And Woe smiled and said, we have only just begun. Come back for more. And Woe will come back. For all of those listening who are not here, there is a chance here, at this juncture in history of humanity, to show the entire world that war is not acceptable ever again. I am crying in love with all of you. And so it is.